or grow it. From the Stash Podcast.
Step into the light of the future with AC Infinity's Ion Frame LED Grow Light. Powered by industry-leading Samsung LM301H EVO diodes, it delivers unparalleled brightness and efficiency. Designed for serious growers, it offers a full spectrum of coverage, precise scheduled controls, as well as innovative sunrise and sunset dimming for a natural light cycle. Its modular, easy-to-manage system ensures optimal heat dissipation and seamless integration with all the smart grow setups that AC Infinity already offers. Experience growth without limits and results that speak for themselves. AC Infinity's Ion Frame EVO Series lights illuminate your path to exceptional yields and dank quality. Learn more at acinfinity.com and use discount code THESTASH15 at checkout to save some money on your order.
Are you a grower? Are you tired of lugging around too many bottles? Is it too expensive? Is it so confusing? Tired of reading feed charts? Well, guess what? There is an easier way. Introducing the Stash Blend. You can now get your bag of Stash Blend premium additives that you can add to your garden using just about any base nutrients. Go to stashblend.com and get your order today.
Boom. From the Stash Podcast, we are back with a special guest today. One of the homies, local for me. We haven't somehow met up and smoked. We need to do this very soon. But Abolished Farmer pulled up on us, or Frugal Force, whichever.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. And yeah, you guys, I go either by Abolished or Abolish the Farmer. That's my new tag. I kind of switched things up because I was Abolished Farms for many years. And since like 2021, I became more of I still did the caregiving, but I wasn't trying to scale up to become part of Metric or anything like that. So I thought it was appropriate to change the name. So.
Well, thank you so much for pulling up, man. Absolutely a pleasure to have you. We got a lot to talk about regards to wicking, watering. Rob said that you specialize or are quite versed in butt chugging, if I may.
Oh yeah, plants love butt stuff, man. And I've been trying to preach that for years because like one of the main things that I was doing when I started to join the whole YouTube scene was teach about butt chugging and wicking system. Because it's literally a godsend for people that I guess like even we can start with people with certain types of disabilities. This system plays really well with. If you're not very good at figuring out pH, ppm, how to feed a plant correctly, the system that I teach is really really friendly with that. It's basically, I like to say, gardening for dummies. I mean, there's a lot of set it and forget it. There's huge periods of time in the system where you're just adding water and you're waiting like 2 weeks to do anything. So it plays really well with people that are on the road. Like I've got to help out so many different facets of people with lifestyles or things that were holding them back with this system over the years that I feel like I need to keep preaching it.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I know it can make things a lot easier. Before we get too deep into the process, though, I know there's probably quite a few people who don't know who you are. Can you do an introduction, maybe an elevator pitch? Let us know a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So go by Abolished or Abolished Farms, Abolished the Farmer. Frugal Force if you're looking me up on YouTube. And I am basically a second generation grower. When I literally would not be here if it wasn't for it. Basically fed me as I was growing up. And I got to see plants. I got to see, like a lot of people talk about brick and stuff like that. Like when I was growing up, I didn't really see brick because I had an aunt and a mother that also grew and they had very, very fire stuff. I didn't see brick until I was an adult. And basically what happened there is once we started to become legal here in Michigan, I ended up getting clones that my dad got for me because basically all I was doing in my early 20s was sitting around playing World of Warcraft. So I had to give me a little bit of a direction. And so he was hooking me. He had like a really good hook on this cheese from an old school grower. And he decided to talk that guy into giving me some clones. And once I got those clones, he basically said, you need to learn how to grow this for yourself, get a skill. I'm not going to buy your forever. So I did, and I jumped onto YouTube, started to find lots of people on there, and it kind of went from there. Like I've been a YouTube nerd, I guess, for longer than I've been promoting the Abolished name. Like I started out watching Sub Cool and all the old school guys. You know, rest in peace and Sub. I think he just had a birthday recently. But yeah, that's a little bit. I'm trying to think what else. Oh yeah, I'm getting like tied around here. I've been caregiving for about 12 years now. I've been scaling back from caregiving the last couple of years, but it seems like every time I say, "All right, I'm just going to grow for myself," somebody needs my help, and I got to put the cape back on.
That's kind of how it is. We get drawn back in. The community is a very contagious or infectious drug, I would say. In some form or fashion, it brings you back.
Well, when people get into this later, as recreational and medical became legal here in Michigan, and God bless your soul, you got to miss the brick wave. But people were tired of paying the prices or getting the mid-grade stuff that they were getting from the stores, so they want to be able to grow. And a lot of the information is out there, but when you're watching videos like some of the stuff we've gone over recently with the new controller AI Plus, it's not a cheap setup. Doing all these things is not cheap. So when you have an affordable alternative way to still get the same, if not better meds than you're getting from the store, I think that's where getting into this frugal method is really, it's cool and it works really well. Mm-hmm. If you want to maybe break down a little bit about what a wicking system is and how you go about setting this up, I think it'd be awesome for the listeners and viewers.
Yeah. So there's two main ways that you can go about it. And then there's all these offshoots of it. And that's like the regular, hard sips that you see, like the city pickers that are pretty common. And then there's the system that I like to run, which is without the plastic pot and using a fabric pot within like a big reservoir. I like to tell people it's like when you're first starting out, you're creating a swamp-like environment in there. And basically what I'd like to do is fill like the standard flood and drain table. I'll take that and fill that with either hydrogen pellet, lava rock, whatever is cheapest or easiest to source, trying to keep it frugal. And then I will bury the pots within those clay pellets or lava rock, especially if I have the ceiling height, because eventually that lava rock area down there, it gets rooted out and basically turns your 20-gallon pot into a much bigger pot. So depending on my ceiling height, I'll judge how deep I want that hydrogen pellet layer. And then you'll want to go out and source a really high quality fabric pot, because when you set these up, we want to set them up to where they're going to last, a decade or more. And if you're using a low quality fabric pot, you're going to have to restart because they get beat up, even when you're not moving them around, just from the roots going through them, just the biology in there. They start to get tore up.
If you don't mind, when you're talking a high quality pot, because like quite frankly, even good quality pots can wear and tear relatively quick. Particularly like I wash mine. I don't know if you wash yours. Like I'll throw them into the washing machine when I'm done with them. Maybe that's a bit excessive.
See, in this case, they'll probably stay put where they are, though.
I was just going to ask. Forever? Yeah. So how?
Forever.
And then you just reuse. You just reuse the system. You're reusing the. So okay, I'm just trying to get this straight. So inside the pot. So what are you using inside the pot as a medium?
So my favorite medium is the Fox Farms Coco Loco. It's the Bush Doctors Coco Loco. Absolutely love that. Like most genetics that I've grown, you can do basically a water only with those. If you're only doing, say, like a 90-day cycle or 100-day cycle, not any kind of extended veg. But
so you're recycling, or you're using new medium every time, correct? With a new plant?
No. So I'll start the pot out with the Coco Loco, and then I will amend with either something like Down to Earth or Nectar for the Gods One Shot. And then once you get that soil in there, though, you have to you're going to want to cap it with either a cover crop, rice hulls, or some kind of modified cover, because that top will dry out, and it is an issue with the bottom watering. But as long as you have some kind of cover on the top, you're good to go.
Okay. That makes a lot more sense then. So that really utilizing the term frugal. Sorry.
Yes.
A lot of reusing.
Oh yeah, frugal force.
Brilliance. No, yeah, 100%. It's in the name. You got that's what it. That's, yeah, making a name for it.
Then you get to this point. I'd say what would be how are you getting the water in there? Are you watering the table, or do you have it set up on a pump?
So you, believe it or not, you do a little bit of top watering if, say, like your clone or whatever you're putting into your main pot system there is small, because you don't really want to start bottom watering until the roots are actually down that way. So I recommend a little bit of light watering on the top until you get the plant established, and then you're doing all your watering from the bottom. The only time anything would go up top is in the beginning, or if you were doing some kind of top fed tea or some kind of treat,
like some stash blend or something. Yeah,
because people take this basic build right here and then they just go all kinds of directions, because you can go synganic with it. You can get really high end organics where you're making all your own inputs and all that stuff and bring it in, or you can just be basic, like I tend to do, where you're just literally top dressing twice a run and adding water and just repeating that over and over again.
I'm glad that you mentioned that if you are using organics, that top layer needs to be covered in some way, whether it be a cover crop, a mulch layer, some sort of cover. I've used cardboard as a cover before up top, but that was a problem that I've experienced, and I think a lot of people experience when they're doing the bottom watering and using organics, is they'll do that top dressing on top, and they'll just continue to bottom water, and that top layer will be dry. And unfortunately, when it's dry, those amendments aren't breaking down, and that nutrition actually isn't reaching the plants. So, yeah, I think that's a really important thing that you mentioned there, which was that top layer needs to be moist. So utilizing a cover crop, a mulch layer, or some sort of cover. I know people use plastic as covers as well, to keep moisture down in that top layer. So, yeah, I just want to emphasize that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's what people think, that those the AC Infinity wick systems, the self-watering bases don't work well, because they don't understand the process of a wick system, that you can't just put a clone in there or a seedling in a 10-gallon pot and assume that the bottom of the roots are hitting the bottom of the base. Like, it has to have a root system established first. So I think that's a great point, where it's not fully set it and forget it until you have your plants grown enough that they can just be watered naturally on their own.
And that actually was going to be my next question, was at what point during the veg stage or seedling stage, if you will, do you transplant and or upsize and or put that plant into that wicking system?
That comes down to like logistics. Like, am I backed up on plants? Do I have big plants? But if you have everything going perfectly, you can honestly go straight from, like, I like to use an aero cloner. You got that nice healthy bit of roots. I'll take that and put that right in the 20-gallon. But it's best to always, if you have the time to do it, do a little bit of up potting before you get to that 20. That way you can start butt chugging a little bit sooner. But from, say, like a solo cup, fully rooted out, you're probably only waiting like a week or two before you can safely start doing a little bit of butt stuff.
After the aero cloner, yeah, your roots are probably going to be 12 inches long at that point, right? And she's only a couple weeks old, if I'm not too, maybe 3 weeks. How long do you leave it in an aero cloner?
It depends on, again, if I'm like rushed, if I need to fill up a room, like I'll pull them out of there in like 8-9 days. But if it's like ideally anything north of 13, 14 is really good. Rooted out.
Right. So those roots will definitely have no problem making it all the way to the pot to start penetrating. Brilliant.
Full penetration.
Yep. When butt chugging.
With that though, some people will use something like a pump or like almost a drain to waste in this situation, where they're going to be having water flooding that tray. Do you hand water the tray after the roots are established, or do you have a system that's automatically watering your reservoir, so to speak? Like, is there any electricity going through that?
No, I mean, when I go to water, if I have my ideal setup, it's literally just a garden hose hooked up to a faucet somewhere. and then an RV filter hooked up to that to take care of the chlorine. And then maybe I'll even hook up a chapin at the end of that to add a little soap nut in there to get some saponins or some aloes sprayed in there. And I'll fill up the wicking bed.
Oh yeah. See that the frugal way doesn't always mean the cheap way. It means the smart way, because I feel like that's a situation where you can avoid electrical components that go out on you. Pumps oftentimes do. I've seen people who do a wick kind of system or the butt chug system with a drain to waste table, and their pump goes out when they're gone. And it's like, oh, they're screwed, versus saying, hey, honey, can you go in there and just turn it on and water it for me? It's definitely a good move. Now, what would you say is like the basic ballpark cost to get this set up? You know, if we're looking frugal again, we're getting piece by piece. What would you say for a basic small personal grow to get a system like what you have going set up?
So I guess we could do it for like a 4x4, because that's like the most common like home grow setup. So you'd first need your wicking tray, which you can either go as cheap as going and getting storage tubs, or you reusing old storage tubs you have around. Or if you've got a little bit of money to spend, you can spend $100 on, I guess they're probably about 60 or 70 now. But get a 4x4 flood and drain table. Make sure it's never had any holes drained in it. And yes, I've had people hit me up that have tried to fill up trays and then they flooded their room because they had holes in it. But yeah, and then after that, you're going to get your hydrogen pellets. And the hydrogen pellets, I say, leave that up to your ceiling height and how much veg time you're going to do. Because I've done plenty of runs with nothing down there, just wicking with this basic system. And the only thing you see that happens down there that somebody might freak out about is a little bit of algae growth. And we're growing in organics. Algae is not going to hurt anything. If anything, it's a food source for some of your springtails or other beneficials that'll end up down there. So the hydrogen pellets, I leave that up to your actual setup and your logistics. But that's another $20 or so, depending on the size bag that you get, how many you need. So I guess that one could go from 20 to 100. And then the fabric pots, said you want to get quality ones, so they'll end up running you probably about $20 a piece or less. I haven't ordered pots in a while. The last ones I got were from Easy Swap Pots, and I believe those were like $40 pots. That's like they hold about 25 gallons or so, 20 to 25. And then you need your Coco Loco. That's roughly $20 a bag. And then I would say just to go and get like a standard CMH or something off of Facebook Marketplace or something like that and start up like that, because I don't have anything against LEDs or anything like that, but that is for when you have a really nice setup where you can control your environment, bring in CO2, you understand supplemental feeding if you start to see a deficiency, because LEDs are like growing with a damn race car. You can't mess up.
Yeah, I mean that's a cheap setup when you look at it. You're looking definitely under $1,000. And most people, when you look at getting going, they're going to buy everything from start to finish. But in this case, it's kind of a start to finish setup. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't need to switch up, especially if you're rocking LED or CMH, because you can keep the same light all the way through technically. Now, have you seen this done successfully with actual wick style, where they're using like shoestrings or a cloth or a fabric into a pot? I haven't seen anybody myself doing that in years, but I remember that being like a go-to for the DIY auto watering system.
Yeah, I feel like I've only seen that like in random pictures or somebody talking about it on a podcast. Like I've never understood how that even would work well. Like, yeah, you could probably get the bottom of the pot decently wet, but I don't think it's going up the 12 to 14 inches tall that the actual pot is. From just that, yeah.
That's where when I used the AC Infinity self-watering bases, I had to have really established roots. So those roots were drinking it up from there. And it's got basically two shoestrings that are crossed and then going down into the system, into the base. So then they're just wicking it up. I feel like if they're thick enough and it could pull up enough moisture, it can work. But I still did have to do at least once a week watering of some kind.
How tall up are the actual like walls on the AC Infinity setup?
They got bigger ones now, but I think they're only like 2 gallons total, and they're probably like 3 inches up.
Okay. So you put what, like a 5 or a 10 gallon in there?
Yeah, that's the thing too. So you're running 25-gallon pots, so you would need a real table at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of my next question. My next question is kind of like, how large of a plant are you growing? Like 25-gallon pots, like I would suspect, are fairly large plants with some fairly large canopies. No?
Well, I mean, like in a 4x4, I'm only putting 4 plants in there most of the time, and that's gonna cover the whole room. Or I'm putting 3 plants inside one of those pots and flipping the room a little bit quicker.
Are you training them?
When there's only a couple plants, yeah, lots of heavy training. But when I'm utilizing my plant count, and I'm just trying to fill the room out. I'm just planting as many. I'm like almost trying to go see a green or whatever in.
Right. That makes sense.
So you're using that 25-gallon pot almost like a bed then too, a soil bed.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
100%. Yeah. And
I was thinking
like
like single big plants. I used to rock 20-gallon pots for just single plants back in the HPS early caregiver days. And man, they were huge. Like you had to have a pole barn to grow plants like that.
I'm just thinking too, if you weren't utilizing your soil over and over again, that wouldn't make sense at all. But the fact that it's a bed and it's there to stay, and you'll take the plant out, put a new plant in, it's a system that's working fantastic. That's great. So if you've got, you say, how many do you have in there now? You have 3 or 4 25 gallons?
For a 4x4, there'd be 4 of them like stuffed into that 4x4 wicking
How
bed
many
tray.
plants are in one pot?
It would just depend on the whatever run I'm on, but it'd either be 4 or I would stuff probably a good 12 in there.
That's sweet.
I kind of like it when you're doing the smaller plants too. They seem, I don't know if you guys have had the same experience, but they seem your same strain when you grow a 2-foot version of it seems to taste better than the 6-foot.
Because he made the maturity. I know Chris has a video why he grows small plants. And, a lot of it is being able to have more harvest per year too. And if you're rerunning the soil and you're having quick harvest, essentially, especially if you're looking at some 90-day life cycles, like you're saying, you don't even need to amend much at all then too. So the cost of everything you're doing is really, really low. Do you utilize like a no-till process, or are you fully re-amending, mixing it all back in, taking it out, or just letting the enzymes eat your roots and replanting in there?
So I've played around with quite a few different, like working with the tops with different cover crops and doing lasagna tech, like the Meadow Dope Boys. And my favorite way to do it is just to top dress and then cap it with rice hulls. It looks aesthetically pleasing, and it gives that extra silica boost that seems to be pretty beneficial. And I know there's some people out there that freak out about the rice hulls because the way that they're made or whatever, they're going to come in contact with pesticides and stuff like that. But it's so hard to do organics perfectly, and get everything you want without getting some kind of contamination from the messed up big ag world that we have.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Jeremy's Builder Soil, they have the parboiled rice hulls as for aeration and additional silica. So I think it just depends on how it's sourced also,
It's hard to do anything perfect, to be honest with you. And the fact that we take it on and try to conquer it, that's what the joy is all about. Because if we could do it perfect, there'd be no joy, there'd be no challenge in it all. So it's like, it makes sense that there's a little bit of a stumble in regards to having a little bit of maybe pests, if you will, or you mentioned algae. Are you doing anything actively in regards to an IPM in your setup?
Yeah, I like to rotate either soap nuts and Lost Coast Plant Therapy, and then I also like to bring
the what? Sorry, I've never heard that. Your therapy?
Lost Coast Plant Therapy.
Yeah.
Lost Coast Plant Therapy. It's
never heard of that.
It's basically an essential oil blend, but they've been around for a bit.
Long time. Yeah, in Michigan, it was like the go-to. That and Green Cleaner were the two. And you'd always see people getting that diluted bullshit Mighty Wash for mites. It was just pink dye. It was like Kool-Aid. 99% water, 1% we can't tell you.
I used to really like that method 1 PPS or whatever it was. That it made your garden smell so good. Like you almost
it's
breathe better.
like a fresh, cleaned garden smell.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in Canada, so I don't have access to probably 90% of these things.
That is true. I didn't think about that.
We can barely get
Totally have
neem
no idea
oil.
what we're talking about.
No, so I didn't. Yeah, that's why I don't get it. So I just asking for those people that don't know. That's what it was.
Should check out and see if you can get soap nuts. They're a saponin and like an enzyme type attack for your pest, and then it's not a bad thing if it leaks down in your soil because it's a saponin.
It's a saponin.
Mm-hmm.
These are the organic things that a lot of people will argue that, like, hey, I'm using this for this reason and this reason. Oh, and also it's fighting my pests.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think when you're utilizing such a moist environment that you have, the thing I'm not worried about as much as pest, what I'm worried about more is potentially mold or PM. What do you do in that situation to combat that? Because I feel like you're going to have to use a dehumidifier a lot more in the room, in my mind, just because of how much moisture is there. I know after I water my plants, my humidity usually goes up. And so I'm assuming it being there, it's probably higher humidity on average, yeah?
Believe it or not, the last 2 places where I've had setups, I struggle to keep up humidity. Like even on a full watering day, I'm still maybe only pushing 40-45%. I bet you if I brought back in more of the old school lighting, like a couple more CMHs or HBS in the room, kick the heat up, it would raise my humidity some with the evaporation. But having like my main tent now being ran with the Grandmaster level LEDs, I don't have a ton of heat in this room.
Yeah, quality build, man. That's the thing too, is you're rocking the LEDs versus the CMHs. So it's like your environment is already kind of set up for that, I guess. Then if anything, you're adding the right humidity in there to increase it, or adding the right moisture to increase it to the level you need to get it to.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I want to bring it back to the pot size because I know there's quite a few people who are listening and they're hearing 25 gallons and they're like, that's way too big. And I think I actually had to do a whole video on it because there's people they just don't know. What would be your reasoning for being in such a large pot size? Like, why aren't you running like 1 or 3 gallons, 5-gallon pots instead?
So I have an experiment that I've been doing for, I'd say just under 2 years now. And I've been utilizing the same type of methodology that I've been, but with 3-gallon pots. And it is working out. But I want to get a few more tests in before I start like trying to tell people to go out and do it. Because the reason why I like those bigger pots is the margin of error. Like it's a little bit more grower friendly for the new grower than to work in these small pots where they have to worry about nutrition and all that. It seems to be easier to keep the plant well fed in this bigger medium.
Yeah, that's a good point. Bigger the roots, bigger the fruits. So a lot of people go after large pots because of that. Easier to keep, more nutrition within that medium versus with the smaller pots. You've got to re-amend, and you got to be on top of it too with waterings and stuff. I mean, they'll dry out faster, in a smaller pot, obviously. I think on the larger pots, a lot of people worry about over-watering because it's so easy to if you put too much water in there, it's tough to get it out quickly and your plants can just be struggling for, several days, a period of time. Have you come across over-watering issues with your wicking system that you work with?
That's one of the reasons why I tell people to set up with the Coco Loco or some kind of cocoa-based super soil. Because it's really hard to overwater those. Even if like the new growers overwatering them, they're still going to end up with a harvest at the end. There still seems to be enough oxygen within that media to keep the plants alive.
Got it. So would you imagine like a soil with less porosity in there would be, higher water holding capacity? Do you think that people would struggle? Something like a good comparison would be like Fox Farm ocean forest soil, for example.
Yeah, because honestly, the majority of issues I've seen people run into in these wicking systems is coming from like a peat-based soil because it just doesn't work as well staying saturated. And then you have to. That's one of the great things about this system is you takes away the worries. You don't want to sit there and have to worry if you water too much or too little. And I feel like you have to do that with peat. Like I've let my cocoa go hydrophobic drying out so much, and then I just let it sit in the water and then it'll rehydrate itself.
I think that's the big difference maker when people look at organic growing is they think they have to have a peat-based media or it's got to be straight soil. And utilizing a super soil based on cocoa, super cocoa, that's very user-friendly in that sense. I think the Wick systems for a lot of people, that's been the biggest concern is like, can my plant just regulate how much water it needs? And yeah, to an extent, but the smaller pots are going to dry out a lot faster. Larger ones are going to hold water longer. So you got to get that timing down, I feel like, regardless, to make sure that you're not just wasting water or wasting time. But it's like, in a sense, you're at least going to harvest your plant. It may not be as great as it can be, but like you're saying, you'll end up with a harvest in the end. You're not going to ruin your whole plant because waterlogging, essentially.
I'm kind of curious because if we're talking 25-gallon pots inside of a 4x4, and you might have already said this, but I can't wrap my banana mind around it. If you're running the clay, or which one are you running right now? Are you running the clay or are you running the volcanic?
The hydrogen pellets or clay
pellets. The clay pellets, right. What is that in? Can you kind of just describe how your setup is? Because I'm just kind of curious. 25-gallon pots, which are fairly large, inside the pellets, what are the pellets in, and is elevated or?
There's I have a couple videos like up on my Instagram and whatnot, but they're literally in like the classic flood and drain table.
Oh, and right. I'm sorry, you did say this. Yes, you did say that. That's right.
But you don't have to use the flood and drain table. Is for the person that's got a little bit of money to spend. Everybody's got extra storage stuff sitting around. Just find whatever to set it in. Like, yeah, it is nice to be able to put all your pots into one wicking bed, but you don't have to. Like, it's still not that much work to go around and water 4 separate trays once every 2 weeks.
So those trays are like, again, I don't use these things, so they're only like 6 inches high, give or take. The beds, right?
Yeah, that'd be good.
6-8 inches, and then they're like a bucket. Do you have those elevated off the ground in any fashion?
No, I wish I had some kind of like dolly system or whatever, some wheels underneath it where I could rotate the beds. That would be like an in-game build there. But myself, no.
Okay.
$1 million idea right there, brother.
Not a bad. Yeah, there you go. The beds with just
rollers,
wheels on them. Yeah. Now I'm thinking 4x4 tents too. Also have that little lip for the door. It'd be nice if you could kind of just wheel them right out of there.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's coming. Oh.
T. Allen.
Get on it, AC Infinity.
Mr. Wilson over here.
Yeah, get on that ACI. Yeah, that the lipless tent.
Oh yeah, a flap that could even go down, like
just
the Velcro.
Velcro.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah, that'd be great. I think, you could definitely build something up. I had a buddy who used kiddie pools for his, like the small ones, and that was his setup, and it worked pretty damn well for him. And eventually he turned those into just big soil beds. It was pretty cool. But there's ways you can get innovative. Again, being frugal. You don't have to go and purchase everything that you need. You just got to get something that has a bit of a lip that can collect your water, essentially, and that's not going to fall out of the bottom because water, it's heavy, obviously.
And it's so cool watching these systems age, you guys. Like, eventually you're going to have soil that gets knocked down into these wicking beds, cuttings of plants, leaves, all that stuff starts to break down into organic material. And you really do get an ecosystem down there. For a long period of time, I had actual centipedes that were living down in the wicking beds. I'm guessing they were eating springtails. I'm not exactly sure what their food source would have been, but they were around for a while. But eventually, your soil mites get out there. Even your worms migrate into those wicking beds. And that's one of the things with the new build that I'm doing, since learning through doing the frugal system for so long and seeing what happens to those beds when I'm not trying to get organic material down there. Now I've set it up to where I actually have real organic material down there. It's been going pretty cool too. I've even had like some mushrooms and stuff pop up down there, but I'll get into that, at a later time when I have all the solid testing data and all that stuff to let people know that this is actually something legit that you can do. The old school method that we've been talking about on this, I've seen it ran all over the country, tons of different environments, people from all walks of life, how busy they are, all that stuff. And it works beautiful for them because I like to say that the frugal forest system caters to your lifestyle.
That's perfect. And in a day and age where life is busy, it's stressful, it's brought with challenge. You don't want that in a tent. You want the exact opposite. You want ease. You want to be a place of zen. So having a system that works for you, I preach it all the time, is exactly what you're working for. And that sounds great. Like it does. It sounds fantastic to have an ecosystem. It scares the shit out of me. I'll be straight honest with you. Hearing that you got centipedes growing down there is like, that's like nasty. But like in such a great scientific and an organic way. This is why I can't do organic. I can barely stomach organic material. It's like,
He also said he'd never grow in a grow tent when we first started kicking it. So we'll see. We'll see where things go.
I might get there.
Organic has a variety. I don't use bugs in nothing. I don't like.
It's coming. I'm sure it will. It's just, Chris, go ahead. You had some intelligent, Tad?
Yeah. I was going to say it's a really interesting system. And, we're talking about butt chugging or bottom watering. I think it's probably appropriate to talk about some of the other ways as well, real quick. I think a system that a lot of people use is auto pots. Being able to just have a reservoir connected, gravity fed down into the system, and then it wicks up. That's another way to go about it. Or just hand watering, hand watering from the bottom watering. I do that all the time. And one of the benefits that I really like about it is it reduces that top layer from being so moist and fungus gnats from thriving in your environment. So oftentimes I'm going to bottom watering when I'm trying to reduce fungus gnat population. So I think I'd mention those two things. Have you tried auto pots at all? What's your thoughts on those?
No, I haven't tried those, but I mean, you could easily turn the frugal system into one of those, if you set up a reservoir and whatnot. I've just never done it because this system can get very boring and I need something to do.
Yeah, some of those set it and forget it's they take away the scientific explorations in the garden. They make it so you kind of just like, cool, I've got bud.
Now like, well, we're talking. Let's go. That sounds like here I come, baby. We're butt chugging. I love it.
Well, yeah, dude. Abolish. Where can people find you, man? I follow you. Got some of the coldest industry memes to just grill half the people I know, and they don't even know it's about them. But it's not. It's just they fit it so perfect.
Yeah. So if you're not if you don't get offended easily, you can follow me on Instagram because my memes do tend to cut kind of deep sometimes. I never call anybody out, but yeah, like Rob was saying, I'm very good at picking the right song, the right type of meme to where you know who I'm talking about or what company I'm talking about, et cetera, et cetera. And then if you like something a little more educational and it's still funny, I try to throw humor into everything that I do. You can go over to Frugal Force Growing and you'll find a lot of video content and different stuff we've done through the years. We talk about a lot more than just butt chugging plants over there. There's a lot of natural medicine focused stuff in there, trying to get people into polyculture, homesteading, all that good stuff, the natural way of living.
Good for you, man. That is a great lifestyle to kind of preach, or spread rather than preach. But I'm all for that. I think in today's day and age, we've lost the idea of self-sufficiency and sustainability, and to be able to reach back to that is great. And that's fantastic. And I like the idea of being frugal. I like the idea of not having a massive footprint. And it sounds like that's not a carbon footprint, but just an environmental footprint, negative environmental footprint. And I think what you're doing is fantastic. So good for you.
I appreciate that. And whenever you're ready to start that butt stuff, man, we can do a little setup there.
Butt's ready, baby. Yeah. Well,
Appreciate
that being said, appreciate you again for being on the show, man. Stick around afterwards. This is Rob, CLtv, Pigeon 420, Mr. Grow It, Abolished as the guest. We'll see you guys next time. Stay lifted. Peace.
Yo, a huge shout out to all our patrons. Rob, Chris, and I want to thank you for your continued support. We wouldn't be able to do content like this if it wasn't for you. If you're watching this and you want to support us, you head to patreon.com/fromthestash. You're going to see stuff that you won't see over here. You'll help support the show, and you can get your name listed at the end of the show. Guys, thank you so much for the support. We thank you.